What can you tell us about this case in terms of how did it get to this point in a way that puts this pastor in such a terrible position?
You know, Uma, we know that in Iran, religious persecution is a real issue. The UN acknowledges that. The State Department acknowledges that. So we that's a given. We know the Baha'i community, the Sunni Muslim community, the Christian community, they're all persecuted. So usually, though, they get arrested and let go after a couple of weeks. And that had actually happened.
Yeah, that's what I have understood all this time.
Yeah, and that had actually happened to Pastor the Pastor Youcef here. He had been arrested in 2006, pretty typical there, and then let go a couple weeks later. One pastor there, who's part of the Council of Elders for the Church of Iran, Pastor Farouz, had told me on my radio show, he said, you know, it's kind of like apartheid, but it's not written down, and we wish it was just written down so we knew what the rules of the game were. And then you have someone like Pastor Youcef, who is, again, 34 years old, has a couple of children, a wife who spent a year in prison, a Muslim attorney who's been sentenced to 9 years in jail. And, you know, they're all facing a huge issues, like they're making an example out of him. It's interesting, though, Iran, their embassies now are denying that this trial is even ongoing, that he's ever been sentenced to death, which means they are on record. They know that we're talking about it now in the media. And, you know, we've had these very troubling reports of, you know, after he gets picked up, 2 years in prison, a full trial goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says you can only execute him if we find out if he was a Muslim at the age of majority. That's 15 years old in Iran. So they send it back to the trial court in June. And this court has to determine, is he a Muslim or does he have Muslim parents? If he's a Muslim who converted at 15 or older, then he's executed, no question. If his parents were Muslims, but he never was a Muslim, he gets those opportunities to recant. Pastor Youcef got those last week. He refused, so the court now could issue their verdict, hopefully in the next couple of days, but they actually can carry out their orders before you actually get a written verdict. There's no public notice of execution there.
This story, I mean, why do you think they, I mean, you mentioned, of course, that Christians and others are persecuted in Iran. We know that. But knowing that the international media is catching wind of this, and the international, you know, leaders also are finding out about this,
sure.
Why would Iran want to take this kind of a high-profile risk at this point in terms of alienating others at a time when they, you know, they want respect around the world?
Usually they don't get caught this early on in the process. This type of person, like the Pastor Youcef here, would have kind of disappeared for a few weeks, and if they executed him, they would say they executed him because of those new charges that are coming out, being a Zionist or rape or drug trafficking is one we see all the time. They plant some drugs on them while they're in jail. They say, okay, now you get the death penalty. If you go through the UN's list of executions in Iran, you see this disproportionate number of rape and drug trafficking crimes that people get executed for. These are, you know, we agree, so we're conservative with the Amnesty International type groups, which are more to the left. We all agree that most of those people it's political and religious people, dissidents, who are being executed. Iran comes up with an idea. Now, we have something new we're working on, Uma, to kind of utilize the fact that this is actually getting attention. So many times we talk about these stories, we're helping a family get out after a family member's been executed, or we learn about the plight when the family finally finds out that someone's been executed. But here we have the UN actually scheduled. Their special rapporteur on religious freedom from the UN Human Rights Council is scheduled to be in Iran next month. So we're an NGO at the United Nations. We're going to be working, starting today actually, with that rapporteur to try and get them to guarantee a meeting with the pastor and his attorney, which would hopefully guarantee his safety and that he'd stay alive, as well as his attorney out of prison for at least a month. Really
quickly, in the few seconds I have left, do you think this, having the UN presence there, is going to be enough to bring Iranian leaders there, enough pressure on them to make good and have that meeting, allow you guys to have that meeting? You know,
we need to pray very hard and work very hard. That would be the UN officially confirming a meeting. That may prolong his life. That may let us figure out exactly what is going on for the next month and kind of slow things down. At the same time, we need to hear more from our leaders. I'm glad that Governor Romney, Governor Perry have spoken out. Secretary of State Clinton needs a much stronger statement. She needs to call for his release like the White House did. But we need a quote from our highest top-ranking diplomat in the United States that says, "Release this pastor today. So there's a lot of work to do. We have to use every angle possible. But these new charges, if they bring forward the Zionist charge, which is the worst charge you can have in Iran, his life, and I've said this the last 24 hours, it's more in danger now than it has been at any other moment in the 2 years since he's been in prison and on trial.
All right, Jordan, we thank you so much for updating us on this very troubling story. I know this is something that you're very passionate about, and we're really glad that you could share some insight as to what's going on, and you'll keep us posted, I hope.
I will, and Fox News has done a great job. The latest article on foxnews.com has got all the information, all the documents we provided to Fox to show that he was never once charged with any other crime other than leaving Islam.
Wow. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and all the best.
Thanks, Emma.
Take care.
Thank you.